No one in Volnyk had ever feared the sky, until the night it turned the color of blood at 2:13 a.m. Without sirens or warnings, a flash split the darkness like a blade cutting open the heavens. Windows shattered before people understood what had happened. Sleep dissolved into screams as shockwaves rolled through the streets, knocking doors off their frames and throwing glass into empty hallways. Mothers ran barefoot, clutching half-awake children. Old men staggered toward doorways, only to be thrown backward by the second blast. Above them all, clouds ignited crimson as jets carved burning trails across the sky. That night, the sky burned red, and in that glow, the small town of Volnyk disappeared forever. Before that night, Volnyk had been invisible to war. Nestled between a slow river and soft pine forests in northern Ukraine, it lived in quiet routine. The bakery opened every morning at 6. Children played football until their mothers yelled them home for dinner. Elderly couples crossed the bridge hand in hand at sunset. The conflict lived on television screens and phone updates, distant, tragic, but never close. People believed war would pass them by. Volnyk had no military base, no factories of value, nothing worth bombing. It was just a town where life went on. Mykola was 12 years old the night the light woke him. Not an explosion, just light, bleeding through his bedroom curtains, painting the ceiling above his bunk bed a glowing red. Confused, he whispered for his mother just as the sound arrived. The thunder crack swallowed his voice. The blast shattered the windows of their apartment and threw him to the floor. Car alarms screamed. The pavement outside rippled from the shockwave. The emergency sirens never came. The antenna had been destroyed in the first strike. Outside, missiles crossed overhead like blazing comets as the sky became a sheet of crimson flame. Volnyk was burning. Panic consumed the streets in minutes. Barefoot families ran, clutching children wrapped in blankets. Elderly neighbors were dragged from doorways while abandoned cars blocked escape routes. Mothers screamed names into smoke, filled air, while fathers carried the wounded toward basements repurposed as shelters. Another explosion struck the textile warehouse on the riverbank, launching a column of fire upward like a funeral torch. Power collapsed. Streetlights died. The town vanished into darkness, illuminated only by burning debris and falling ash. Above it all, jets roared unseen. 15 kilometers away, Ukrainian troops scrambled to defensive positions. Serhiy Komarov, just 22 years old, watched the horizon glow red like an open wound. He whispered the town's name under his breath: Volnyk, the place where he bought pastries and visited his aunt when passing through. Radar feeds exploded with alerts: incoming drones, missile saturation, civilian target clusters. Anti-air fire stitched glowing lines through the red sky as one drone burst apart and another slipped through. Serhiy felt helpless watching the town that meant nothing to military planners, yet everything to thousands of innocent people, vanish into flame. In the underground shelter beneath the school gymnasium, Mykola clung to his mother as more than 100 townspeople crowded together in fear. Dust fell from the vibrating ceiling. A woman cried over an injured child while volunteers tied off bleeding wounds using shoelaces. Babies screamed in air that smelled of sweat and concrete and burning plastic. An elderly woman recited prayers between sobs. Mykola pressed his hands over his ears as another impact thundered above them. He looked up at his mother with trembling eyes and whispered, "Will we die?" She answered with the only lie she had left to give: "No." At 2:29 a.m., the world went silent. Communication towers were destroyed, satellite links jammed, radios dead, the internet gone. Volnyk ceased to exist beyond its burning perimeter. No help could hear them. No messages could leave. The town became an island of terror, isolated beneath the blood-red sky, trapped in an unseen catastrophe where survival depended only on time and luck. Dawn arrived quietly, revealing what the night had done. 4 apartment buildings were reduced to skeletons. The medical clinic was flattened. The warehouse smoldered beside the river. Smoke-covered streets littered with shattered toys, broken doors, and bodies wrapped in emergency blankets. First responders arrived from neighboring towns to search, to dig, to count. Serhiy's unit was sent to assist. He walked through familiar streets that felt unrecognizable, stepping past shattered family photos spilled across the pavement. He stopped in front of a crushed red bicycle lying beneath rubble and knew immediately who it belonged to. They found Mykola alive near the shelter entrance, sitting in silence, gripping the bike keys that now unlocked nothing. Serhiy knelt beside him and asked softly if he was okay. The boy nodded without looking up. Then he asked a question Serhiy couldn't answer. Why did they do it? The soldier had fought for months, trained for strategy, endured battle, yet there was no response to explain why childhood had to burn with the sky. Hours later, the world noticed. news channels broadcast satellite images of Volnyk's smoking ruins. Headlines labeled it an unexplained civilian strike. Political leaders issued statements filled with concern and condemnation. Aid convoys were promised. Social media buzzed with before and after photographs that spread around the globe. Millions looked at the red, stained sky long after the sirens that never sounded had already failed the people below. 3 days later, casualty numbers settled into cold statistics. 43 confirmed dead, over 120 wounded, more than 600 displaced. Mykola and his mother were sent to temporary housing far from the river and the bakery that would never reopen. The school gymnasium remained a shelter instead of returning to echoes of basketball games and assemblies. Volnyk slowly faded into memory, another shadow on the map of a war too large to comprehend fully. 1 week after the bombing, Serhiy received a letter at the front line. The handwriting was shaky, imperfect, unmistakably a child's. It read, "Thank you for finding my bike, even broken. I am not scared of red skies anymore." Serhiy stared at the words as artillery tremors shook the ground nearby. Against all reason, hope still survived, fragile but unextinguished in the heart of a 12-year-old boy who had seen the heavens burn. Months passed, front lines moved, new towns learned fear. Missiles continued to cross night skies. Civilians kept running, and somewhere, people in untouched places slept beneath peaceful blue horizons, believing war would never reach them, just as Volnyk once had, because the sky does not turn red suddenly. It does so when the world looks away for too long. They say war changes nations, cities, and borders, but in Volnyk, it changed the sky. And every night since, those who survived still look upward in silence, afraid that one day the heavens might burn red again.